We filed a substantial amended complaint. Just to be clear, our job is to start with, what led up to this and finish with what went on after, and ultimately focus on why it happened to begin with. Obviously, the juicy story appears to be the development that's going on Elliott Avenue. But the reality is that, first of all, let's be clear. Cleaning up the West End is long overdue. It's the manner in which you do it that can result in catastrophes like this. And basically the general premise behind what we found is that, Elliott Avenue is being torn down to be rebuilt. The Louisville Metro Land Bank Authority has access, I think, to well over 20 homes over there. Most of which have either been demolished or being scheduled to be demolished. There is a development that's going in. It's my understanding that, starting towards the end of this year, the goal is to start getting bids together and get plans together. Obviously, a lot of planning's in the work if they're sitting there trying to knock all these houses down. This program appears to be a goal by Metro that's loosely based upon a program in Cincinnati called Pivot. But Pivot, which has worked which has worked up there, basically what they did is they went and identified the highest violent areas that are the most concentrated. And they, think like The Wire and the housing projects in The Wire and how they targeted that in Baltimore on the show. Cincinnati, one of their 2 projects was to send their police over to basically a place like that, clean it up. The second one was literally a street that on the corner had 18 shootings over the course of a year. That makes sense. Get police presence over there, see what you can do to make the community safer. The problem is that while Louisville, developed a place-based investigative unit for LMPD and targeted it, at least on paper, to be directed towards high violent crime areas, their primary targets on Elliott Avenue were not violent criminals. And you have a team of 5 to 6 plainclothes officers that were basically given free rein to just harass, pull over for any reason, keep hitting these houses. They put up a full surveillance camera. We're watching them 24/7. And frankly, I think we could all go over to West Louisville right now and identify some places that really are subject to homicide, lots of shootings, things along those lines. But Elliott Avenue is not one of them, and frankly, it's pretty obvious because Elliott Avenue is fairly vacant right now. There's not that many people there. So the issue that we have right now is that on Elliott Avenue, you've got 6 plainclothes officers basically doing anything and everything they can to get people out of a few homes, one of which is the home of an ex-boyfriend from Breonna Taylor a couple years ago. And you've got this police unit that's arresting these people left and right, pulling them over, just like the Tayon Lee case from last year. You pull them over, you pull over people over there just because they may or may not have run a stop sign or made a wide turn, things like that. When you look at the timeline here, you start to see last August a lot of things happening. Metro had purchased a lot of these houses, gotten people to give them to them for $1. They're starting to schedule to tear them down. By November, there's conversations being had over the plans. They've got, as we saw yesterday, they've got a gentleman over in the West End who, appears to be, I guess, the boots on the ground, and certainly we've got more that we need to learn about that. We've got, by this point, a house on Elliott Avenue that is a major roadblock. And in December, they hit it for warrants. In January, they arrest occupants over there. And between January 2nd and I think January 5th, you've literally got arrests or traffic stops of all these people. You've got, on January 10th, you've got a warrant on one of them for their vehicle. On February 14th, you've got another warrant. On March 9th, you've got them trying to hit them in a house and nobody's there. And then it does look like enough is enough. So on March 12th, you've got LMPD getting their first 5 no-knock warrants of the entire year to hit a small home on Elliott, 3 of which are to hit a small home in the adjacent 2 properties on Elliott Avenue over, at most, minor drug violations. And then where the issue just gets so crazy is Then all of a sudden you've got another warrant for a place right around the corner, and then you got the 5th warrant for Breonna Taylor's house. And as a housing development and the need to, get these houses bought or given to you for $1 and knock them down so you can put in new things, really worth, does it justify 6 plainclothes police officers basically sitting there all day long just watching and trying to get you and going into home, going into home, going into home? Is it worth a no-knock warrant to begin with? Is it worth a 24/7 surveillance camera? And then is it worth trying to lump in some girl who lives 10 miles away on the south end of Louisville, who literally has a different boyfriend who's there every single day, who is on the warrant for intelligence that's 2 months old and even has her driving a car that she got rid of 2 months ago, who has no drug history, who works 2 jobs? So I guess the point is that, yeah, when we look at this puzzle piece, it does start with this plan that was recklessly executed that we don't think looks anything like the one that works in Cincinnati. And we don't think that it looks anything like really what this unit was supposed to target. They're supposed to be targeting violent crime syndicates, and instead they decided that a house needed to go, so they needed to target, what was at most a trap house. None of those folks in that house have any violent criminal history. They've got drug history, but no violent criminal history. None.
Do you think that the mayor's lack of response to fire the cops has something to do with the Vision Russell development, the gentrification efforts?
So the question is, do I think that the mayor's lack of response has something to do with the Vision Russell development? My visceral reaction to that is no. Vision Russell has been at play for 5 or 6 years now. When I drive through Russell, I don't see much, execution. So I do think that the mayor's on a short timeline right now to get a lot done if he's going to uphold his promise. Do I think that Breonna Taylor, the officers were at her home that night because of Vision Russell or this Elliott Street project? When you connect the dots, that's where it starts. I mean, obviously there's so many other things going on. So it's an issue, and it's been an issue, and I think that some transparency right at the beginning to talk about what this police unit was, why they were there, why they were constantly arresting these folks, why in the world they were at Breonna Taylor's house that night, why the evidence shows that her house was never supposed to be hit. It was a backup warrant. I mean, it was kind of a desperate effort. If we can't find these guys, maybe they're at the ex-girlfriend's place, that we saw her apparently at 2 months ago. So I wish it was just a simple situation, I mean, it's a long amended complaint, and I'm sure a lot of people read it and say, my gosh, really? All this legit? And right now the evidence that we got, the evidence connects all the dots.